Have you ever heard of a lantern that could trap ghostly magic inside it? In a quiet little town, surrounded by fog and whispering trees, there was an old antique shop that no one dared to enter after sunset. People said strange lights flickered through its dusty windows at night. Lights that weren't from this world. But one stormy evening, a curious kid named Milo wandered inside, searching for something he didn't even know existed. And that's when he found it. A lantern that glowed without a candle, humming softly, almost as if it were alive. And once you light it, something magical and a little spooky awakens from within. Long before Milo was even born, people in his town whispered stories about a ghost who once lived in the hills, a gentle spirit named Elara. They said she carried a lantern made of moonlight itself, guiding lost travelers safely through dark nights. But one fateful evening, the lantern's glow vanished. Over time, her legend faded, just another bedtime story parents told to make their kids behave. But some old folks still swore they had seen that same light drifting near the woods after midnight, moving slowly, as if searching for something, or someone. When Milo found that strange lantern inside the antique shop, covered in cobwebs and dust, he thought it was just an old decoration, but the moment he touched it, the air turned cold, the glass shimmered faintly, and for a second, just a second, he saw a flicker of a face in the reflection. Milo pulled his hand away, his heart racing. He laughed nervously, trying to convince himself it was just his imagination. But deep down, he knew something about this lantern was different. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that faint flicker, the reflection that almost looked alive. Finally, he couldn't resist. He tiptoed out of bed, grabbed a flashlight, and crept back to the antique shop. Inside, everything was quiet. Too quiet. The lantern sat exactly where he'd left it, glowing ever so slightly even though no candle burned inside. Then, he heard it. He froze. Hello? He stammered, his voice trembling. But instead of an answer, the lantern pulsed with light, casting ghostly patterns across the walls, shapes of trees, stars, and in that brief flash, Milo realized something unbelievable. The ghost from the legend wasn't gone. She was trapped inside the lantern. The glow from the lantern dimmed, then brightened again, like it was breathing. The light swirled inside the glass, forming a faint, shimmering shape. A woman's voice echoed softly through the room. "I am Elara," she said, her tone calm yet filled with sadness. "I need your help, Milo." The light flickered again. "Because the lantern chose you." Elara explained that her spirit had been trapped for centuries. Once, the lantern's light guided travelers safely home, but when dark magic crept into the forest, it stole her freedom and locked her within her own creation. "There's only one way to break the curse," Elara whispered. Milo gulped. He wanted to ask more questions, but before he could, the lantern's light blinked out completely. The shop fell into darkness. Only one word remained echoing in his ears. The next morning, Milo packed his backpack with a flashlight, a water bottle, and the ghostly lantern that still shimmered faintly, as if it had its own heartbeat. He didn't know if he really believed in magic, but deep down, something told him that Elara's voice was real. As he stepped into the forest, the world seemed to change. The wind grew colder. The trees stood taller, their branches twisting like fingers pointing the way forward. The deeper he went, the quieter it became. Even the birds stopped singing. It almost felt like it was guiding him, tugging him gently toward something ahead. The planks creaked under his weight, and halfway across, the lantern's glow dimmed. The lantern flared suddenly, pushing the mist away for a moment. And in that light, Milo saw glowing eyes beneath the bridge. The shadows Elara warned about, they were real. With one deep breath, he ran across the bridge, and the whispering stopped. Beyond the bridge, the path twisted through a place unlike anything Milo had ever seen. The air shimmered faintly, like sunlight reflecting off water. Even though it was almost dusk, the trees whispered softly, repeating fragments of his thoughts back to him. It was eerie, but also strangely beautiful. Every sound echoed twice, almost like the forest itself was alive. When Milo took a step, the ground glowed faintly beneath his feet, leaving behind fading footprints of light. The lantern's glow wavered, and the whispers began to shift. "You'll never find the lake," one voice said, echoing from the trees. He shook his head. "You're not real," he muttered. "Elara told me to keep going." Suddenly, a figure appeared ahead, a shadowy outline of his own reflection. It moved when he moved, but its smile was wrong. Too wide, too dark. The lantern flared brightly, and the shadow let out a distorted cry before dissolving into smoke. Milo stumbled back, breathing hard. Then, Elara's faint voice echoed from the lantern once more. "You passed, Milo. The forest of echoes feeds on fear. You've proven your heart is stronger." The lantern pulsed again. "Follow the river of light. It will take you to the Moonstone Lake. But beware. The final guardian awaits." Milo tightened his grip on the lantern and stepped forward. As Milo followed the glowing river, the world grew darker again. The trees bent low, their branches weaving together like a tunnel. Mist curled around his ankles, cold and heavy. The lantern flickered weakly, struggling to hold its light. He could sense it now. Something was near. Then, out of the mist, a massive shadow emerged. It had no clear shape, just swirling darkness with two piercing white eyes. The air around it rippled, and the ground trembled as it spoke in a voice that shook the forest. Milo took a step back, clutching the lantern. "This belongs to Elara," he shouted. The shadow's laughter rolled like thunder. Elara's light was never hers. It was mine, the power that bound her, trapped her, and now, you. The lantern's glow dimmed to almost nothing. Milo's heart raced. If the light went out completely, he knew Elara would be lost forever. But then he remembered her words. "The lantern chose you." He took a deep breath and lifted it high. "You can't take it," he said. The shadow lunged forward, wrapping around him like smoke. But instead of fear, Milo felt warmth, courage glowing from deep inside him. The shadow screamed and scattered into pieces, fading into the mist. The river of light sparkled brighter than ever, leading straight toward the lake in the distance. And from inside the lantern, Elara's soft voice whispered, "You did it, Milo. The path is clear." At its center lay Moonstone Lake, glowing softly under the pale moon. Milo stepped to the edge, the lantern glowing gently in his hands. The voice inside it was calm now, almost peaceful. "This is where it all began," Elara whispered, "and where it must end." Milo hesitated. "Will you disappear?" There was a pause. Then she said softly, "Not disappear, return. The light must be free, Milo. You've done what no one else could. You've reminded the lantern what it means to shine." He lifted the lantern high above the lake. For a moment, everything went still. No wind, no sound. Then, with a gentle hum, the lantern's light rose upward, bursting into thousands of tiny glowing orbs that drifted into the sky. The entire lake sparkled as if the stars themselves had fallen into the water. And there she was, Elara, standing in the reflection, smiling warmly. "Goodbye, brave one." Her image faded into the moonlight, leaving behind only a calm glow on the water. He looked up at the sky, where the last specks of light disappeared among the stars, and whispered, "Goodbye, Elara." By the time Milo made it back to town, dawn had begun to break. The fog that always clung to the hills was gone, replaced by soft golden light. The forest no longer felt eerie. It felt alive, peaceful, and full of quiet wonder. He carried the lantern carefully back to the antique shop. It no longer glowed, but somehow it felt warmer, lighter, as if the spirit within it had left a piece of her magic behind. Milo placed it on the dusty counter where he'd first found it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then faintly, the glass shimmered with a single spark, a soft, comforting glow that pulsed once. He smiled. "Goodbye, Elara," he whispered. "Thank you." The town felt brighter somehow, as if the curse that had lingered for centuries had finally lifted. And as Milo walked home, he noticed something in his shadow. A faint glimmer of light following just behind him, like a friend who wasn't quite gone. That night he placed the lantern by his window. Under the moonlight, it shimmered ever so slightly, as though winking at him, reminding him that even in darkness, there's always a light waiting to be found.